the 52nd ICYPAA in New York City. It is my pleasure to introduce all of you guys to tonight's speaker, Alonzo C. from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you.
My name's Alonzo, I'm an alcoholic. Wow. There's a lot of people here. Must be at least 100, I think, huh?
1,500.
Oh, 1,500. My sobriety date is December 19th, 1997. I have a sponsor, his name's Terry M., and I have a home group. And I have a home group, it's 7850 Knuckleheads in Scottsdale, Arizona. And yeah. So, I'm supposed to tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And so, to begin, I guess I'll start off by saying that I was born and raised in the good part of South Central Los Angeles. And yeah, I don't know. I lived there for quite some time, and I remember the first time I didn't feel a part of. I must have been about 3 years old, and I went outside to walk or to play with some of the kids that lived in my neighborhood, and me only speaking Spanish at the time, and the neighborhood I lived in primarily spoke English. The kids promptly threw rocks at me, and so I was not really welcome there, and with the children in my neighborhood. And some of the things that I've heard people say in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous is like not being able to express feelings. And I remember being actually I was walking to kindergarten, and I would always walk to kindergarten with this one little girl. And not because I was trying to get in her pants, you know, I was only 5, but I would always walk to school with this one girl, and then one day I was walking to school, and well, actually one day I didn't go to school, and that day she walked by herself, and she got hit by a car and got killed. And I don't remember if this was real or not, this next part. I remember having a dream or seeing the actual dress that she was wearing covered in blood and the whole deal, and again, that was probably a dream, but the point is I just kept all that stuff in. I didn't talk about this with my teacher. I didn't express my sadness to my parents. I didn't cry. I just kept it all in. In first grade, our teacher, if you talked in class, she hit you in the face with a ruler. And she didn't really get caught for the stuff that she was doing, because again, mom's the word, no one says anything, until she pulled on some girl's ear and ended up with the earring in her hand. You know, and in second grade, I decided it was time for me to toughen up, you know, and because I've had enough about, you know, I was 7 years old, for God's sakes, you know, I had to become a man. And I started slicking my hair back and, you know, ironing my pants and listening to oldies and trying to, you know, and I just wanted to be like this tough guy, you know, and by third grade I got in trouble for that type of stuff. And I say these things, one, because I think they're cool, like now looking back, but two, because when I first came into the program, I would listen to people share their story and I could not identify. And the reason I could not identify was because I was looking for the differences. It seemed like everyone was Caucasian, and that was a big difference. It seemed like everyone was older than me, and that was a big difference. And it seemed like everyone had money, and that was a big difference. And I kept on looking for any reason, or maybe you didn't do any jail time, and I had done jail time. Or maybe you did years in prison, and I never went to prison. And whatever it was, I always seemed to pick out the things that would make me be different. And if I was different, that meant that I did not have to do the things that you were talking about in order to get, you know, this program of recovery, in order to get the promises, in order to get sober, in order to get all these things. And I was one of those alcoholic addict guys, because I'm different. I'm not just an alcoholic. I have to be both because I'm different than you. And I'm not bashing anyone that does that, but I look for any way to be different. And if you're new or relatively new, I would suggest that maybe you listen to the similarities. I'm not here to convince anyone that they're an alcoholic. I'm not here to, I don't even know that I'm necessarily a great representation of this program or can convey the message all that well. But what I am here to share is just my experience, strength, and hope. So anyways, I started drinking around that time, around 7 or 9 years old. I have a big family. I have, in fact, I recently counted. I'm going to be getting married here pretty soon. And my mom has 10 brothers and sisters, and my dad has 13 brothers and sisters. And I counted first cousins, aunts and uncles, like my parents' brothers and sisters, and it's 170 people that I have to invite, just family, that's to the wedding. So I have a big family, I guess is my point. And when I was a kid, a lot of our family lived in LA, and we would have gatherings every weekend. Someone's being born or someone's getting married or some reason to celebrate, and we'd all get together. And I remember grabbing a couple beers and going around the side of the house with a couple of my cousins and proceeding to drink as much as I could, as fast as I could. And I drank, and that's pretty much actually the way I drank for the most part, throughout my drinking career. But the reason I drank was not because I wanted to get loaded. I drank because that seemed cool. That's what everybody was doing. It was something to get away with. It was just like the excitement of it. Later on, I would find that I would get this disease, or had the disease, however you want to say it. And even if I was not drinking, I was constantly thinking about drinking, and the obsession would hit, and I would have to go drink. And then once I took that first drink, I could not stop. I had to take another drink. I think that's why people say that, or that's why we use the verbiage powerless over alcohol. Even when I'm not drinking, I am powerless over it. And once I take that first drink, I am powerless over it. So it's just like this complete, we're screwed, We're screwed. Anyway, so I drank, throughout being a kid, and at some point my parents decided LA was not the best place to raise children, so they moved us to Arizona, to the west part of Arizona, which is where I currently live, and that wasn't necessarily that much better, but we moved over there, and I didn't get to drink that much, and I only drank once in that time there, and I got in a fight with some cowboys, and they threw me in a lake, and so for a long time I had this resentment against Arizona, but I'm over it now. And we moved around a little bit, moved to southern Orange County and in California, and everywhere I went, I would look for that group of people, the guys that were breaking the rules, ditching class, gang members, whatever it was, and I started hanging out with them. At about 14 or 15, I'm hanging out with these guys at some sort of park, and we decided we were going to go to Ralph's, which is a grocery store, and we each stole a bottle of Presidente, and we put it down our pants. And then we went to McDonald's, which was not too far away, and we got the supersized cups and filled it up with ice and lemon and put the top in the straw, and then went back to this park and then poured the Presidente in there straight. And we did this because even as kids, we knew that the police, was after us or whatever, constantly paranoid. So we hid this, and we thought no one will ever know, So we're up there and we're drinking, and this is when I first felt the magic of alcohol for me, because all my life I was worried. I could not talk to women because I just thought too much, and actually not even thought about what they would think of me, more of what my friends would think of me if I went and asked this girl out and got rejected, I just constantly thinking, and what alcohol did for me was it gave me that feeling of, and it just kind of quieted all that stuff out, It took away my fear, and I was able to be my drunken self at perfect peace, I could say whatever I wanted to say, I could do whatever I wanted to do, and it was fine. And shortly after that, or this night, I blacked out, and and I blacked out, and I came to, and I was throwing up in front of this girl I really liked, and then I blacked out again. I remember people were laughing at me, and I remember I blacked out again, and I woke up at the park that we were drinking, and the sprinklers had woke me up, and my friends were nowhere to be seen, and that was the first time I slept at a park, but it wasn't the last. And for me, my drinking kind of progressed from there rather quickly. Yeah. From there, I started getting into, what people consider outside issues as well. Well, first off, because of the people I was running with, I started getting shot at, and all that type of stuff. I started getting arrested and not really like taken to jail, arrested, but like picked up, handcuffs on, taken to your house, that type of stuff. And then 16 years old, I started having like seizures, like foaming from the mouth, flopping around like a fish out of water because of some of the other stuff I was doing. At 17, my parents gave me the choice. You got to quit drinking and drugging or you got to leave. And whenever presented with the choice, you got to quit drinking and drugging or, I had to choose or, and I left. And I thought I was doing the honorable thing, but really what I was doing is I was trying to reserve my right to drink as I wanted to without being bothered. And I just left. I got like a backpack and I put like a pair of underwear and a knife or something like that. And I left. And I live nowhere near the woods, so yeah. But so anyway, I left, and I didn't know this at the time, but I would end up being homeless for a couple of years. And for a little while, it was pretty cool. I could sleep, at some of my friends' houses, but I also like to steal a lot, and I would steal some of their stuff, or I would try to sneak into their sister's room, and then I would promptly be asked to leave, and I stole, and I did a lot of, things that I'm not necessarily proud of in order to stay loaded. And that went on for some time, I remember this one time I was homeless, and there was this big light, kind of like that spotlight right there, that was like, it seemed like always be flashing down on my part of the alley that I would stay at. And so I would always break it with rocks, and then they got wise to me and they put this cage around it. And so I decided to climb up this 2-story condominium, and I pulled out my knife, the one I had, and I opened up the wire box and I started cutting the wires. And I don't know if anyone's ever cut like live wires with a knife before, but what happens is you get shocked. And so I'm cutting the wires and I get shocked, and zzz, and I fall about 2 stories, maybe 1.5, because I'm kind of and my friends, they're all hanging around me, and they're pointing and laughing at me, and and I get up, and for the next month I see this blue light everywhere I go, like it's just like this blue haze everywhere, and I thought I'd gone crazy, but I just been shocked really bad. And I did the jail thing. I didn't really do that much jail time or anything like that. But when I did go to jail, it was just like the next syndicated thing. They give you the one phone call, and I don't use it. Like, who am I gonna call? The Connect? My parents that I haven't seen in forever. I felt that it was best if they just thought I was dead or something. If they never heard from me again, I thought that would probably be best, and so I really did not have a high opinion of myself, and that was me, quote unquote, partying, and that's how I felt about myself. I have the experience that I feel like I hit my bottom and continue to drink for like another year or so, and so I guess I'm just going to fast forward. I haven't slept in like 10 days, and I'm at this wedding, and there's all these people in there drinking, and I'm there. I'm like homeless, so I don't really fit in, but like I'm there, and I'm like still in their alcohol and and drinking and stuff, and then that ends, and I go to this after party, and we're drinking and doing some other stuff there, and at about 5 in the morning, everyone's like, all right, you got to go, and I have nowhere else to go, and I constantly had nowhere else to go. But for some reason, this time it was very like obvious. No one was giving me a ride, and I was like rather far from where I was staying, which was an abandoned condominium. And I just, I didn't have any money, I didn't have any alcohol, I didn't have any women, I didn't have any drugs. I had nothing that anybody, so me just being myself was not enough, for these people to give me a ride a couple miles away. And it wasn't because of them, it was because of me. I would do the same exact thing if I had been in their shoes. So I start walking, and I'm walking through this empty field, and it's like September 20-something, and it's all foggy, and I see a shooting star, and I made a wish on the shooting star to be successful, and I can tell you that how I felt at that time was misery dipped in shit, and so I just did not feel good, and and I continued to walk, and I'm walking down this alley, and I'm going to the Connect's house, and even though he told me not to stop by that early, I felt like I had nowhere else to go. So I'm walking, and this dog comes up and starts sniffing my leg, and by this time, because I've been out for like 10 days, I'm afraid of like little animals, So I turn around and I kick the dog, and I continue to walk, and I look back, and I'm kind of walking kind of promptly, and I look back, and this dog's limping after me, and it's mad, So I start running, and my parents' house was before the Connect's house, so I ran there, and after arguing with my brother for a little while to let me in, he lets me in, and I wake up a day and a half later, and this guy starts telling me something about some rehab, and essentially starts 12-stepping me. And I'm going to back up a little bit. When I made that wish on a shooting star, it was the first time that I can recall that I stopped making deals with God. It seemed like it was just help, and I think God answered my prayer for whatever reason by sending this like this weird dog to like chase me to my parents' house in order to be like 12-stepped, so. Whenever I would go home, I would get something to eat, I would take a shower, and I would steal some money, and I would be off again. And that's what I did. It was about 2 o'clock when all this happened, and I left. And I met up with a buddy of mine up in a tree, because I figure the cops can't see you, if you're up in the trees. So I'm hanging out there in a tree with my buddy about 2 o'clock, the sun's out. The trees where I'm from are not very tall, so like everyone could see us up there, I guess is my point. And so we're up in the tree, and and we're smoking a joint, and I start telling this guy about this, this guy that came 12-step me, he told me about this rehab, blah blah blah, and his response to me was, "I think you should go to rehab," And for whatever reason, I think I decided to listen to this guy. And my parents, I got loaded that day, and I think the next day, my parents paid $95 for me to go to this place for 97 days. So it was a real high-quality place, and I went there, and after about 3 days, I'm like, man, this sobriety thing freaking sucks, I'm not feeling the promises at all. And I decided to leave, and I walked out, and you're not supposed to walk out within 7 days. And this guy that had 18 days started talking to me, and I don't remember what he said or what his name was. I only remember he had 18 days, and him talking to me kept me sober for that day. And that's essentially how this program works. One alcoholic talking to another. And thank you to the 52nd ICYPAA for asking me to speak up here tonight. It's like a true honor to do this, and this is a great way to convey the message, but a better way is one alcoholic talking to another, one-on-one, talking about recovery. And so if you're new or relatively new, meetings are not it, meetings like are also definitely a part of this program, but like the meat and potatoes of it is working with that sponsor on the steps and getting a closer relationship with that higher power. this guy helped me stay sober. Unfortunately, I did not stay sober from then on. They sent me home for one day because they had no room in the recovery part of the rehab or something. And after about 20 minutes, I was loaded. One of my friends had been killed the day before, and it was like basically right behind my house. And instead of using that as like a symbol, as like, oh, maybe I should not live this lifestyle. Maybe I should stay sober. I decided to mourn his death by getting loaded and then going and robbing some people. And I actually had robbed like this Connect apparently. So like after about 3 days, it was like rather chaotic. And now I'm like trying to find a way to like get back to this rehab, you know? And no one's giving me a ride because, you know, my parents have had it with me. I don't really have any friends, right? Like all I have is people that I drink and use with, and that's all they want from me, and that's really all I want from them. So I finally got a hold of this girl that I had dated when I was like 15 years old, and you know, and I called her, you know, I'm like blah blah blah, I told her the story, and she said she would give me a ride to rehab if I gave her $20 and didn't talk to her on the way there, you know, and you know, and so I said deal, and I stole $20 from my mom, and then you know, and I gave her the $20, and I went back to this place, and I guess I assumed that by going into this place I would be cured once I got out, and that's another thing that's not true, right? Like you go, if I went into an institution and I had to do stuff once I got out of the institution, and my experience was that once I got out, I did not do the things that were suggested, and I got instantly crazy. What happened for me was my brother wanted to watch TV, or my brother was watching TV one day, and I felt it was my turn to watch TV. You know, I just got out of rehab and all, and you know, and he didn't see it my way, so I put his head through the closet door, and that's how I get when I'm not drinking and not recovering. You know. Over a TV channel, or over basically getting what I want, I'm willing to physically hurt family members, emotionally hurt them, and you know, if I can do that with family members, I can definitely do that with other people. So the last time I drank though was while I was in the rehab. I believe the date was December 18th, 1997. Me and a couple guys from rehab decided to have a pass, you know, or like go out, like where they give you some time to like be out on your own or whatever. And the rehab was in Garden Grove, California, so it wasn't necessarily like in the like a really like great place. We decided to get a motel room, and it was $15. And we decided to get some women, and we decided to get them drunk and have a good time, you know. And what happened was I got drunk, and no one had a good time. You know, after an hour of me drinking, you know, I went back to this motel room and I robbed these women, and these two, you know, gang members from two different gangs were not too pleased with me, and you know, and I kind of had to get out of there, and I believe that was December 18th, 1997. So my sobriety date is December 19th, 1997, and since then I've not done this program perfectly. You know, I did not tell my rehab I had relapsed. I did, you know, later on I got out and I put my brother's head through the closet door, and as a result of that, I had to do this like all these like group counseling things and P-test in front of some guy and go to 12-step meetings. And during one of these group counseling things, I met this guy named Frankie. And Frankie was a 45-year-old cowboy. He used to talk about climbing up trees and shooting at shadows. And I'm like, I climb trees, you know, so I identified with this guy right away. So I identified with this guy right away. And I started, you know, and we would go to meetings together, you know, and he would pick me up, and he had like a mullet and play country music and pick me up, and I had a shaved head and size 44 pants or whatever, you know, you know, he'd pick me up to meetings, and I didn't know this, actually, I only had this realization up until recently, but what happened for me was I didn't identify during the meetings. I identified on the way to the meeting and on the way back home. And the way I identified is probably not a typical way, because me and Frank, we would talk, you know, trash on everyone at the meeting all the way to the meeting, and then we were like, oh, can you believe her? She's such a slut, or whatever, you know, like, and then we would do that all the way home, right? And what I found was I was able to identify with another alcoholic. I was able to relate to another alcoholic, and then from there, I was able to admit to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. Because I had no problem admitting that I was powerless over alcohol or that my life was unmanageable. What I had a problem with, as I said in the beginning, was identifying with you, saying that I'm one of you. And once I was able to do that, it seemed like my higher power started, having me listen a little bit. It seemed like every meeting that I went to, the topic was sponsor, sponsor, sponsor. And that's like the one word I heard in those hour-and-a-half meetings, like a sponsor. And then finally I asked someone, what's a sponsor? Someone that works the steps with you and shows you how to live a sober life. And I'm like, maybe I should give me one of those. And he's like, yeah. So I got me one of those, And then it seemed like the next month it was steps, steps, steps. What is that? Our common welfare should come first? No, the other ones, And at first I didn't want to, At first, I didn't want to work those damn 10 steps, and I thought there was 10 of them, I didn't want to work, those steps, and I don't know why, I just didn't want to, it was just unnatural for me to work on myself, but through pain in sobriety and being crazy, like I needed to work these steps, and I started working them. And I think service probably came up before I started working the steps, but that's the way it went, right? Like my higher power, even though I went to this rehab, and I have nothing against rehabs, but my higher power chose to give me this thing in Alcoholics Anonymous, That's where he was able to give me the solution. And as a result, I've made a bunch of friends, like great friends. And I'll tell you about some of my relationships then and then possibly today as well, and we'll see what happens. So I have no idea what's going to come out. But so at the time, like people that I could not identify with, like as far as like necessarily background and stuff, but I could identify with the emotions. I could identify to like picking up a drink and not being able to stop. I could identify to the party ends at 2 in the morning and I want to keep on partying. I could identify to telling myself the night before, I don't ever want to do this, and the next morning I have to go drink. I could identify with those type of things. And I started hanging out with them, and they would, pick me up and take me to meetings. I didn't have a car, actually, I didn't have a license either. But, and through that, through people picking me up and taking me to meetings, did that stop? All right, I'm going to keep on going. So through picking me up and taking me to meetings, these friends became my best friends. And and I'm and I mean best friends, So they would pick me up and they would tell me about service commitments and meetings and conferences and all these type of things. And I remember one of the first conferences I went to, I believe, was ICYPAA in San Diego, and it was about a 45-minute drive from my house. It was about a 45-minute drive from my house, and someone said, "Hey, let's go," and I went, and it was great, I think actually probably from that conference I actually started becoming involved in service work in ICYPAA, and one of the first conferences that I was ever a part for a bid committee was ICYPAA, and we were bidding for ICYPAA, and there was like only 3 of us, so we didn't get it, but it was a good experience, and from there I went on to help host ICYPAA in Irvine, California, in Orange County. I believe it was in 2000, 2001 or something, and I didn't do much there either, like honestly, but I showed up to these committee meetings, and as a result of showing up to committee meetings, I had to work the steps harder, And I had a new experience with these steps, and basically like the idea of like working these steps like all the time, not just working a 4-step every time I get squirrely, but actually doing a 10-step consistently, you know, and those type of things. You know, I guess some of the major things that happen as a result of like conference work, which is like one of my passions, is to like I love to travel. I love to like just get up and like take off. And one time, as a result of me being able to to go with some friends 45 minutes south to a conference, I was able to like jump in a car with a friend and drive around the United States and do a little tour, you know, for like several weeks. And then from there, I was able to go to Europe the year after, you know, for a little bit over a month. And I was able to go to Ireland, England, Spain, and Italy, and experience those type of things. And again, like being lonely and away from like friends and family in my home group and my sponsorship and basically my core group of people, again, I had to like really rely upon God again, you know, like more than I have to do like when I'm at home. When I'm at home, I know how to get from, you know, my house to my job or wherever I need to go. But when I'm like somewhere else and I really have to just like trust God, I can try to use my wits, but ultimately it's that reliance, you know, like, and my faith increases that way. The year after that, I had been reading this spiritual literature by someone that doesn't really matter, but and as a result, I was inspired to move up to this place in Toronto, Canada, actually a suburb of Toronto, and work with developmentally disabled adults, you know, and that like completely changed my life again, you know. And again, there I was not able to go to that many meetings, and my program kind of like, you know, wasn't working. I was kind of like trying to live in Orange County, you know, like thinking about the past and the future without really being in the moment when I was there. And I learned how to live in the moment a little bit more when I was living there. And my life has like really changed as a result of all this type of stuff. You know, I went back to Orange County, and for some reason I couldn't stand it anymore, and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. You know, and I actually, it's not that I couldn't stand it. Really, what it was is that it was just time for me to go. I wanted the same type of relationship with my family that I had in this community that I was living in Toronto, so I decided that, you know, the only way to do that is to try to like live closer to him. So I went and I wanted a relationship with my family. And what I mean by a relationship with my family is I wanted not just to go on the weekends, not be able to stand them by the end of it, and then like race back home. What I wanted was I wanted to be able to joke around with them. I wanted to be able to confide in them and have them confide in me. You know, I wanted to laugh and cry with them. And as a result of doing the things that you guys have suggested to me, actually not even suggested, the things that you have shown me, I'm able to have a great relationship with my family today, you know? So I think I'm going to talk about the steps a little bit. So I talked about the first step, you know, and actually, you know, my whole story could probably be summed up in 2 stories that we have in our big book. One is that, or one of the quotes is, "Alcohol gave me wings to fly, and then it took the sky away," you know? And the other one is that in exchange for a bottle and a hangover, I have received the keys to the kingdom. And you know, and for me, that just describes it perfectly. But I have some time to talk up here, so I'm going to talk about that. So my first step I talked to you, I just had to admit to my innermost self that I was one of you guys. And then once I was able to do that, I was able to go on with the rest of the steps. Here, let me flip on this thing, because what happens is I get nervous and I forget the steps. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore us to sanity. And for me, I already had like clear-cut examples about the fact that I was insane, but people had to point them out to me. So voluntarily going homeless in order to preserve my right to drink, that's like considered insane, you know. And so I came to believe that there was a power out there that could restore me to sanity. I grew up in a religious background, and I didn't have a resentment against that, and I actually went back to that. And so I didn't really have a problem believing in a higher power, but I did have a problem trusting that higher power. And that has kind of been like something that's progressed, you know, that's gotten better and better as I get sober. So I don't think that's something that's accomplished for me. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. And I see some doors opening. So that's what happens when you talk about the steps, you know? Like, so made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And, you know, people constantly use the analogy of three frogs sitting on a log. One of them decides to jump off. How many do you have? Three. They say, it's just a decision, so just make the decision and continue on with the steps. And I find that for myself, that's not necessarily the case, because I kind of believed that when I first got sober, and then I got into my fourth step, and it took me 6 months to do my fourth step. And someone that has completely, you know, that if I've completely turned my will and my life over to the care of my higher power, like a fourth step should not be that scary, you know? Like I should just be able to like trust. And so I think it's a major decision, you know, like something that for me requires like meditation and contemplation and what have you. But anyway, so I did that and then made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. For me, you know, like different people will talk about this step different ways. For me, it's the 3 columns, and then there's the 4th column, and then there's the fears inventory, and then there's the sexual inventory, and then there's the sexual ideal. And I think all, like separately, all those are a part of like some of the stuff that I've gotten out of the 4th step. One is I did not know, you know, with those first 3 columns, I did not know how resentful I was or how angry I was. Everyone else like seemed to know, you know, like I was like I was really like upset like all the time, and I probably should have known, but like I didn't. And I was able to see like, you know, like basically just like, actually I wasn't able to see, my sponsor was able to point out certain things in that. And then in that 4th step, you know, I wrote my part, and most of the time there was a part, and even when there wasn't, like there was things that you know, in my opinion, I just did not have a part of. But then someone at a meeting once told me, and she like basically called me out. She said, well, your part is that you're still hanging on to that, you know. And so I guess ultimately I do have a part, and even in those things that I feel I didn't have a part in, you know. And obviously my fears list and sexual inventory. And for me, my like sexual ideal like list has like, when my sponsor asked me to do one, it was very materialistic and physical. And I guess I just didn't know much deeper than that. And through the years, like that has like progressed and changed and molded, and God has like really worked with me, and sponsors have really worked with me. And ultimately, what it came down to, my last one that I did was someone that has similar morals and values as I do. And I know that seems very simplistic, but like I had put so many rules on God and the person that I felt, you know, that I would want into my life, that I would have missed her, you know. So once I did that, what happened for me, I guess, is at some point, my sponsor constantly reminds me that I need to give this part, the relationship part, up to God, just like I've given everything else. And that's tough. That's easier said than done. And at some point, I don't know how or why, but I said this prayer. I'm like, all right, God, you're going to have to take care of this for me. And I said that prayer like literally 1,000 times before. And this time it like stuck. And so I didn't, you know, I stopped obsessing about that. It wasn't like as soon as someone like waved at me, oh, is she the one? You know, like, or like, or, you know, this must be God's will, you know, like, or any of that. It was, God like completely took care of this for me, because what happened was like someone asked me out, you know, and she asked me out, and apparently she had been flirting with me like often. She was like making me CDs and like doing like inviting me out to dinner, and I you know, like, and that's kind of like a testament to like not necessarily me, but like what my higher power did, you know, like he was able to get me to the point where I could not even realize that someone was interested in me. And she asked me out, and then you know, we started dating and so on and so forth. And through the course of me and her dating, her father was very sick. That was one of the things she told me in the beginning. She's like, my dad's very sick, and I have to make sure that I make time for him. And about 2 months into us dating, I said, hey, you know what, I think this is going to turn into something. I really would like to meet your father before he passes. And she was kind of hesitant because, for her own reasons. And then at some point she's like, okay, you know, like, yeah, I'd like you to meet my father. And then, you know, so, and I guess the reason I'm sharing the story is because, like, those type of things are not me. I am not considerate, you know. I am not thinking of others. You know, like, I don't do those things. And anyway, so I was able to meet her father, and her father was unconscious, and you know, and about 17 hours later, he passed away. You know, and anyway, so I was able to be there for, you know, with her for the funeral and throughout these type of things. And you know, she is the first woman that I've ever told I love you to. She is the first girlfriend I've had in sobriety. She is, yeah, I mean, she's just amazing, you know. And we were in Guatemala just recently, and we were in Tikal hiking some Mayan ruins, and we hiked up the tallest ruin temple that we could find, and I proposed to her, you know, and she said yes. So. And she said yes, you know, so I was one of those people that did not feel that God could take care of certain things for me. And over, He has shown me that when I trust in Him, like, He'll take care of it. And if you don't call Him Him, that's okay, but that's the way I call Him. So, fifth step, you know, like, through the fifth step, my sponsor was able to point out character defects, and I hear a lot of stories about sponsors saying different things like, oh, you know, I did something like that, and I've had those stories as well, but I've also had sponsors like stop me in my tracks when I've tried to, like, be arrogant and cocky about something and almost proud of some of those things, and tell me, no, like, this is not okay, you know, like, refusing to allow me to, like, laugh or, like, shun, you know, like, make it seem like smaller than what it was. And I need that, because you know, what are we doing here sometimes? We try to impress each other with the biggest war stories. And I know that for me, like, that's no longer something that I'm attracted to or that helps me, really. You know, like, I don't need someone to call me on my stuff all the time, but when I'm, especially during a fifth step, like, I need people to point those things out to me. You know, step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And the first time I did this step, it was easy. You know, like, I went home, I did my hour from the 5th step, and then I did 6 and 7 and started immediately on 8. And one of the last times, not the last time, but one of the last times I did an inventory, step 6 was the toughest step that I did. It was tougher than my 4th step, it was tougher than my 5th step, it was tougher than my 8th step, it was tougher than my 9th step, you know. And I think it's because of the wording. It really got me. You know, in the 12 and 12 it says that this is the step that separates the men from the boys, or the women, or the girls from the women. And the step says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And some of these defects of character had worked for me. Being sarcastic, you know, that works great for me. I could make fun of anyone. You know, I could make fun of someone, smiling in their face, laughing, get people on my side, laughing at this person, totally character assassinating them right in front of, you know, and it's like, I'll probably even get a high five, you know, like people are like, you know, like, so that had worked for me. Lust had worked for me, and all these different things had kind of like worked for me to a point. And so I thought they had worked for me. That's probably a better way to put it. So to admit, or to add, or to get to the point of being entirely ready to have God remove all these things from me, I balked, you know? It took some time, and through prayer, meditation, and kind of doing that process, I was able to get there. And once I was ready, then I humbly asked Him right away to remove those things from me. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. For me, people say it's your fourth step, and definitely like fourth steps are definitely part of it. But I had a lot of people that I had robbed and stole from and did all kinds of stuff to that I had no resentment to, and so I have to like make amends for those things as well. Like so I make a list of that stuff, and then and some of the stuff I wasn't necessarily ready. Like I was like, I don't know if I can make amends for this, and those type of things. And I think the eighth step is a great one to talk about with my sponsor. And then my sponsor will tell me, okay, that is a living amends. Like if you go there, you're going to harm them. Or if you go there, you could get shot. Or whatever, like, and so he tells me what's a living amends, what's a financial amends, and what's like a verbal amends. Or an action amends, I guess. Then I make these amends, and some of the best amends that I think I've made is probably to my family. My parents, when I made amends to them the first time, they said that all they wanted from me was to go to school. And that's great, like, but I started going to school, and I realized that since I never finished high school and never really went to school when I was going, I didn't know how to go to school. So I failed year after year after year. But I kept on trying because I felt like that's what I needed to do, so I continued going to school and doing the thing, and eventually I got my AA degree. After 10 years, I got a 2-year degree. And then and then what was cool about that is after a year and a half, I was able to get a bachelor's degree, in history. And for my commencement ceremony, I was able to do something that chances are I would not have been able to do had I been loaded. At my commencement ceremony, the President of the United States went and spoke at my commencement ceremony. They only gave us like 6 tickets and this and that. I am not someone that should be allowed anywhere near like the President, or anywhere else. And that was, they gave me just enough tickets for every person in my family, and because that was the limit. And again, just as a result of doing the things that you guys have taught me, which was, go to meetings, so I went to class. Read the stuff at home. I read that stuff at home, for school. And it's just very similar stuff. Currently, and then, so after getting that degree, that was, I think a year or two ago, May, I applied for this master's program where they only accepted 25 people. It's a master's in social justice and human rights. And they only accepted 25 people into the program, and I was one of the people that was accepted. And, And through this program, I'm able to find my calling and whatever, and it's just another miracle, in my life. So, step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. For me, this step has been the toughest one, I think, because this requires consistency, and persistence. And like, I'm someone that goes to the gym. Like, I'll sign up for like a gym membership, and more recently, I've been doing a lot better with this step. And one of the things, I was reading this step with one of the guys that I sponsor, and everyone's heard this before, but I'm going to read it anyways. It says, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So I looked up some of these words because I didn't really know what they meant. It says what we really have is a daily reprieve. And I looked up the word reprieve. And one of the definitions for reprieve was lapse, or a lapse in time before a prisoner gets executed. And and so what we really have is a lapse in time before ultimately, like, I die of this disease that is contingent, meaning dependent on the maintenance, continual effort and action of our spiritual condition, and And I can say that, and I could make it sound nice, but that doesn't mean I'm still doing it, you know? And again, more recently, I've done a lot better with this. I found that I fail at this a lot. So what I've been doing recently is I've been doing this step with like a friend. I call him up, and he talks to me, and I talk to him, and we don't even necessarily give each other feedback, but we do that step. And that seems to be helping a lot. And I find that kind of weak, you know? I don't find that very, I don't feel very empowered over the fact that I have to call someone else in order to do this step. But if that's what it takes, I'd rather do that than not do it. I find that I have to like humble myself in those type of ways. Actually, I don't humble myself. I have to be kind of like humbled in those type of ways in order to like proceed on with the steps sometimes. All right, so. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for a knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So it says sought through prayer and meditation, right? Like it doesn't say one or the other. If you do one really well, you do not have to do the other one. And I really like what the 12 and 12 talks about, and I'm going to misquote it, but it talks about like self-analysis. Prayer and meditation separately are great, but together they are an unshakable foundation for life. And that's pretty strong, you know? Like, and I find that it actually becomes all-inclusive when I do this more consistently. Let's see. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. So it promises me a spiritual awakening, and then and I get to carry the message. And how I get to carry the message, again, like when I get to do this is awesome. You know, like people like cheer and stuff. It's really good. But like like H&I, like hospitals and institutions, to be able to carry the message into like some sort of institution where people cannot get out but actually want to stay sober because they know they've screwed up and that's why they're in there. That is like, I don't know, that's like one of the things that I definitely recommend, even if you're new, really. But one-on-one, like sponsorship, I feel is like I said, best. Practicing these principles in all our affairs, that's like the tough part again, That's like the part where I'm like, well, I don't know, I kind of want to like yell at somebody sometimes, Like I just want to like be mean to them, just to see what happens. And I find that that's like no longer okay, Anyways, I feel like my time is running out. So if you're new or relatively new, I would suggest that you get a sponsor. And what a sponsor is, again, it's like someone that works to assess with you and shows you how to live a sober life. And it doesn't matter who it is. It could be the person next to you, really. As long as it's not you and you have someone, that's probably a better person to sponsor you than anybody else, or than yourself, right? My life today is incredible. And this is coming from like a hopeless alcoholic of the worst kind, like someone that does not deserve, or I don't know if deserve is the right way, but had no chance really of living this life, and somehow I was able to make it into these rooms. I don't know. I think I'm just about done. So thank you.
Give it up for Alonzo.